The man standing in the corner of the gym was a mountain. 6'5", 280 pounds of raw muscle, a former college football lineman who had transitioned into competitive bodybuilding. Everyone in the room knew his name, Derek "The Wall" Morrison, but nobody knew what was about to happen. Los Angeles, California, Valley View Athletic Club, March 14, 1974. Thursday evening, 6:30 p.m. The gym smelled like sweat, leather, and Ben Gay. It was one of those old-school training facilities where serious people came to work. No mirrors covering every wall, no chrome equipment, just heavy bags, wooden floors that creaked under weight, and a single boxing ring in the center. The kind of place where you proved yourself, not photographed yourself. Approximately 40 people were scattered throughout the space. Some worked the bags, others stretched on worn mats, a few sat on wooden benches along the walls, wrapping their hands, taping their ankles, preparing for evening sparring sessions. The sound of impact echoed rhythmically, leather against leather, fist against canvas, the shuffle of feet on wood. In one corner, near the speed bag platform, a smaller man worked alone. He wore simple black training pants and a white t-shirt. His movements were precise, economical. Each strike on the bag created a sharp, clean sound, not the heavy thud of power, but the crisp snap of accuracy. His name was on the gym roster, but most people here didn't pay attention to paperwork. But one man had been watching him for the past 20 minutes, and he wasn't impressed. Derek Morrison sat on a bench near the ring, his massive arms crossed over his chest. He had been a dominant force in this gym for 2 years. People moved out of his way. They gave him space on the equipment. They didn't challenge him. At 280 pounds, with a bench press over 400 and a personality that matched his size, Derek had established himself as the alpha presence in Valley View. He didn't like what he was seeing. The smaller man at the speed bag looked soft to him, looked like he belonged on a movie set, not in a real training facility. Derek had heard rumors, something about this guy being in films, doing stunt work, playing parts that required martial arts. That was the problem with Los Angeles, full of actors pretending to be tough, full of choreographed fighting that looked good on camera but would crumble in a real situation. Derek leaned over to his training partner, a heavyweight boxer named Marcus. "Who's that?" Marcus glanced toward the speed bag. "Don't know. Been coming in the past few weeks. Keeps to himself. Looks like a movie guy. Maybe. Doesn't bother anyone." Derek watched the smaller man's hands work the speed bag. Fast, sure, but Derek had seen faster, had seen harder. This guy probably weighed 170, maybe 175 at most. Derek outweighed him by over 100 pounds. The size difference was absurd. "Movie guys shouldn't be in real gyms," Derek said, his voice carrying across the space. A few heads turned. "This isn't a place for actors pretending to be tough." The smaller man didn't react, just continued his rhythm on the speed bag. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Consistent, focused, unbothered. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Derek, man, leave it alone." But Derek was already standing. He had been feeling restless all week. His last bodybuilding competition hadn't gone the way he wanted. 3rd place instead of 1st. The judges had marked him down for symmetry, which was bullshit. He was the biggest guy on stage. Size should count for something. He walked across the gym floor, his footsteps heavy, deliberate. Other people stopped what they were doing to watch. Derek approaching someone was never casual. It meant something was about to happen. He stopped about 6 feet from the speed bag. "Hey!" The smaller man's hand stopped moving. The speed bag slowly swung to stillness. He turned, his expression neutral, not hostile, not friendly, just present. "You want to test something?" the smaller man said quietly. It wasn't a question. Yeah, I do. I want to see if all this martial arts movie stuff actually works against someone real.
Someone your size doesn't match. The gym owner, an older man named Sal, who had run the place for 30 years, stepped forward. "Derek, not tonight. Come on." Derek ignored him. "What's your name?" "Chuck." "Okay, Chuck, here's what I'm thinking. You and me, sparring, white contact, just to see what you got, unless you'd rather go back to your speed bag and pretend you're dangerous."
What happened in the next few seconds would change Derek Morrison's understanding of strength, power, and what it meant to be dangerous. Chuck nodded slowly. "All right." Sal tried again. "Guys, this isn't—" "It's fine," Chuck said calmly. "If he needs to see something, let him see it." The crowd shifted. People moved closer to the ring. Marcus whispered to the person next to him, "This is a bad idea. Derek's going to hurt him." Someone else replied, "Derek outweighs him by 100 pounds. This is going to be over fast." Chuck walked toward the ring. He didn't rush, didn't posture, just moved with quiet purpose. Derek followed, grinning now, feeding off the attention, the energy of the crowd. They climbed through the ropes. Sal reluctantly took the center of the ring. "Light contact, protective gear. Don't need it, just hands, just seeing what he's got." Chuck said nothing, just stood in his corner, still calm, still centered. Sal looked at Chuck. "You sure?" "I'm sure." "Okay." Sal stepped back. "Keep it clean. Stop when I say stop." The two men moved toward the center of the ring. The size difference was staggering. Derek looked like he belonged in a heavyweight boxing match or a professional wrestling ring. Chuck looked like he should be teaching a martial arts class to children. Derek settled into a wide stance, hands up, bouncing slightly on the balls of his feet. He had taken some boxing lessons over the years, nothing serious, but enough to know basics. Jab, cross, keep your hands up, use your reach. Chuck's stance was different. Feet shoulder-width apart, weight centered, hands up but relaxed, fingers open, not in tight fists. His body looked loose, almost casual, but anyone paying close attention would notice something else. Perfect balance, not a single unnecessary movement, every part of him aligned. Derek moved first. He threw a jab, testing distance. It was lazy, not committed, just a rangefinder. Chuck's head moved slightly, maybe 2 inches, and the jab missed. Derek pulled back, reset, threw another. Same result. The punch traveled through empty space where Chuck had been but was no longer. "Come on, movie star, show me something." Chuck didn't respond. Derek stepped forward more aggressively now, throwing a combination, jab, cross, hook, textbook boxing, thrown with power, the kind of combination that would overwhelm someone untrained, force them to turtle up, cover, retreat. Chuck moved, not backward, not away. He stepped in, angling slightly to his right, inside Derek's guard. His left hand touched Derek's lead arm, just a light contact, redirecting the jab past his shoulder. The cross never landed because Chuck wasn't where Derek aimed, and the hook, thrown with full commitment, swung through air as Chuck had already moved into a position where the arc couldn't reach him. Derek stumbled slightly, off balance from his own momentum. He caught himself, turned, surprised. "What the—" Before he could finish the thought, Chuck's right hand touched Derek's chest. Not a punch, a push, gentle almost, but placed precisely over the solar plexus. Derek felt it immediately, a strange sensation, like someone had pressed a button that temporarily disconnected his breath from his lungs. He gasped, stepped back, confused. What just happened? The crowd murmured. That wasn't supposed to happen. Derek was supposed to be overwhelming the smaller man with his size and power. Instead, he was the one backing up, trying to catch his breath.
But Derek Morrison was not someone who backed down easily. What came next would test everything Chuck Norris had learned in 20 years of training. Derek's face flushed, embarrassment mixed with anger. He had been touched by someone 100 pounds lighter, in front of everyone. His gym, his domain, his reputation. "All right," Derek muttered, voice tight. "All right." He charged. Not a technique, not a strategy, just raw power and mass moving forward. The plan was simple. Close distance, use his size, tie Chuck up. Demonstrate that all the footwork and precision in the world doesn't matter when you're physically outmatched. It was the same strategy that had worked for Derek in street fights, in bar confrontations, in every physical challenge he'd faced since high school. Be bigger, be stronger, impose your will. Chuck didn't retreat. He stood his ground, and then, at the last possible moment, he moved. His right foot stepped forward and to the left. His body rotated. Derek's charge carried him forward, but Chuck wasn't in front of him anymore. Chuck was beside him, moving with Derek's momentum, not against it. His left hand touched Derek's shoulder, his right hand touched Derek's far hip, and then, with what looked like no effort at all, Chuck redirected all 280 pounds of Derek Morrison's mass. Derek's feet left the ground. For a split second, he was airborne. Then he hit the canvas, hard. The ring shook. The sound of impact echoed through the gym. Complete silence. Derek lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what had just occurred. He had charged forward with all his strength, and somehow he was on the ground. He hadn't been punched. He hadn't been kicked. He had simply been moved. Chuck stood a few feet away, hands down, breathing normally, waiting. Sal stepped forward. "That's enough. Derek, you good?" Derek's pride was more injured than his body. He pushed himself up slowly, jaw clenched. "I'm fine." "Then we're done." "No." Derek stood fully now, facing Chuck again. "No, we're not done. That was lucky. Let's go again." Chuck's expression didn't change. "You sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure." Sal looked between them. "Derek, just do it," Derek snapped. "Okay." They reset. This time, Derek was more cautious. He circled, hands up, studying Chuck's stance, looking for openings. He threw a low kick, borrowed from what he'd seen in kickboxing matches. Chuck checked it with his shin, absorbing the impact without moving backward. Derek threw another combination, jab, jab, cross. Chuck slipped the first jab, parried the second, and the cross missed as he angled away. Derek followed up immediately with a hook aimed at Chuck's ribs. This time, Chuck didn't move. He stood in place, and as Derek's fist came in, Chuck's left arm dropped, meeting the hook with his forearm. The impact made a sharp sound, bone on bone, but Chuck's structure held. Derek's punch stopped cold. Before Derek could retract, Chuck's right hand shot forward, a straight punch thrown from his center, traveling perhaps 10 inches. It landed on Derek's sternum, not with the heavy thud of power, but with a sharp, penetrating impact that seemed to go through Derek's chest rather than against it. Derek's knees buckled, his eyes went wide, the air left his lungs in a single explosive gasp. He staggered backward, his hands dropping, his body hunching forward instinctively to protect the point of impact. Chuck didn't follow up, just stood there, centered, balanced, waiting. Derek was trying to breathe. His diaphragm had spasmed. His chest felt like someone had stuck him with a cattle prod. He had never experienced this sensation before. He'd been hit hard in football. He'd taken punches in bar fights, but this was different. This felt like his entire nervous system had momentarily short-circuited.
15 people in that gym would later tell the same story. They had never seen Derek Morrison look afraid until that moment. Derek's breath returned slowly. He straightened up, still holding his chest, staring at Chuck with new eyes. The arrogance was gone. The confidence was cracking. What remained was something primal, the recognition that he was in over his head. What did you do?" Chuck's voice was quiet. "I showed you what works." That's not normal punching." "No, it's not." Derek's training partner, Marcus, called from outside the ring. "Derek, that's Chuck Norris. He's a 6-time world karate champion. He's not just some actor, man." The name didn't mean anything to Derek.
He didn't follow martial arts tournaments, didn't watch karate championships. But the way Marcus said it, and the way everyone in the gym was suddenly looking at Chuck with a different level of respect, made it clear. He had just challenged someone way beyond his understanding. You're a champion? Was. Still train. Still teach. Derek looked around the gym. People were staring. Some looked shocked. Others looked like they were trying not to laugh. His reputation, carefully built over 2 years, was dissolving in real time. I didn't know, Derek said quietly. Doesn't matter if you knew. What matters is what you learned from this. Derek's jaw tightened. Part of him wanted to attack again, to salvage something from this humiliation. But a larger part, the part that had kept him alive in street fights and competitive sports, recognized when he was outmatched. So what? You gonna embarrass me in front of everyone? Prove your point? Chuck shook his head. I'm not trying to embarrass you. You challenged me. I accepted. Now we're both standing here. Nothing to be embarrassed about. I'm on the ground twice. You haven't been touched once. Because you're fighting with emotion, with pride, not with understanding. Derek's hands dropped to his sides. What does that mean? Chuck stepped closer, his voice lower now, meant only for Derek. It means you're strong, that's obvious. Anyone can see it. But strength without control is just force, and force can be redirected. You charged at me twice. Both times I used your own momentum against you. So what, I'm supposed to not use my strength? You're supposed to use it intelligently. Boxing teaches you to punch through your opponent, but there are other ways that use less energy, create more effect. Derek was listening now, really listening. The anger was fading, replaced by something else. Curiosity, respect. Where'd you learn this? 20 years of training. Started with Tong Sudo in Korea, then other systems, Japanese, Chinese, Filipino. Took what worked, discarded what didn't, built my own understanding. And it works against people my size? Chuck's expression softened slightly. Size matters, weight matters, but technique matters more. A 280-pound man who doesn't understand leverage is less dangerous than a 170-pound man who does.
What Chuck Norris said next would stay with Derek Morrison for the rest of his life and change the way he approached every physical challenge afterward. Come here, Chuck said, gesturing for Derek to step closer. Derek hesitated, then moved forward. Chuck reached out, placed a hand on Derek's shoulder, not aggressive, just guiding. Feel your stance. You're standing wide, grounded. That's good for power, but watch. Chuck pushed Derek's shoulder gently. Because Derek's stance was so wide, his base was locked. He couldn't adjust quickly. He had to take a step to regain balance. Now try this. Chuck adjusted Derek's feet, bringing them slightly closer together. Same strength, but more mobile. Push me. Derek pushed Chuck's shoulder with the same force. Chuck's feet adjusted instantly, his body flowing with the push, neutralizing it. He didn't resist the force, he moved with it. Do you see the difference? Derek nodded slowly. You're not fighting the push. Exactly. I'm accepting it, redirecting it. You were so focused on power, you made yourself rigid. Rigidity breaks. Flexibility adapts. For the first time since the sparring started, Derek smiled. Not his usual arrogant grin, something more genuine. I thought you'd just, kick my ass and that would be it. I could have, but what would you learn from that? That you're better than me? No. You'd learn that you need to change your approach, that power without wisdom is wasted. That's the lesson, not who wins in a gym on a Thursday night. Derek extended his hand. Chuck took it. The handshake was firm, respectful. Could you teach me, Derek asked, some of what you know? You train here regularly? 5 days a week? Then yeah, we'll work together.
But you need to be willing to start over. Forget what you think you know about fighting. Learn principles, not techniques. Derek nodded. I can do that. Sal, who had been watching from the ropes, finally spoke up. You two done trying to break my ring? Both men laughed. The tension that had filled the gym evaporated. As they climbed out of the ring, Marcus approached Derek. Man, I tried to warn you. Yeah, you did. I didn't listen. You good? Derek rubbed his sternum, still feeling the phantom impact of Chuck's punch. I'm humbled, but yeah, I'm good.
But the story doesn't end here. What happened over the next 3 months would transform Derek Morrison from a gym bully into one of the most respected training partners in Los Angeles. Chuck Norris and Derek Morrison trained together twice a week for the next 12 weeks. Not sparring, not competing, just working principles. Chuck taught Derek about center line, about structure, about how to generate power from the ground up rather than from muscle alone. Derek's personality shifted. The arrogance that had defined him melted away, replaced by genuine curiosity and discipline. He stopped calling out new people at the gym, stopped using his size to intimidate, started helping others, especially smaller fighters who were trying to learn how to deal with bigger opponents. One evening, about 2 months into their training, Derek and Chuck were working on a drill involving wrist control and body positioning. Derek made a mistake, left himself open. Chuck could have countered, demonstrated the error. Instead, he just reset the position and explained what Derek had missed. "Why do you do that?" Derek asked. "Do what?" "Go easy. Show me the mistake instead of just exploiting it. Most people would take the opening." Chuck paused, thinking about the question. "Because I'm not trying to beat you. I'm trying to teach you. There's a difference." "But you've competed. You've won championships. You know how to hurt people." Knowing how to hurt people and choosing to hurt people are two different things. I've done both. But teaching requires patience. Ego gets in the way of learning. Derek absorbed this. "Is that why you didn't make me look worse that first night when I challenged you?" "You made yourself look bad enough. I didn't need to add to it. Besides, humiliating someone doesn't change them. It just makes them defensive. You were already experiencing enough shame. What you needed was understanding." "Most people would have just dropped me and walked away." "Most people are insecure. They need to prove themselves constantly. I don't. I know what I can do. Don't need to demonstrate it unless necessary." Derek shook his head, smiling. "I was such an asshole that night." "You were acting out of insecurity. Happens to everyone. The question is whether you learn from it." "I'm trying." "I know. That's why we're still training together."
Years later, a filmmaker would ask Derek Morrison about Chuck Norris. His answer would capture something essential about what it meant to train with a real martial artist. In 1981, 7 years after that night at Valley View Athletic Club, Derek Morrison was working as a technical advisor on an action film. The director asked him who the best fighter he'd ever trained with was. Derek didn't hesitate. Chuck Norris. "Really? I've heard people say he's more actor than fighter now." Derek smiled. "People who say that never trained with him, never felt what it's like when he hits you. Not movie hits, real ones." "What's the difference?" "Movie hits look good, they sound good, they tell a story. Real hits don't care about story, they just work." Chuck's strikes were real, clean, efficient, no wasted motion, no telegraphing. You'd be in the middle of a drill, thinking you understood what was happening, and suddenly you'd be on the ground, wondering how you got there. Sounds like respect. More than respect, understanding. Before Chuck, I thought fighting was about size and power. I was 280 pounds. I could bench press over 400. I figured that made me dangerous. And then a guy 70 pounds lighter put me on my back twice in 3 minutes, without breaking a sweat, without anger, just technique, physics, understanding how bodies work. That changed everything for me. Did you stay in touch? For years, we trained together whenever he was in LA.
He was filming a lot by then. Way of the Dragon, Return of the Dragon, all those projects. But when he had time, we'd work together. He never treated me like I was wasting his time, never made me feel small, even though that first night I absolutely deserved it. What did he teach you? Derek thought about this for a long moment. How to be strong without being aggressive. How to be confident without being arrogant. How to know you're capable of hurting someone and choosing not to. That's the real power. Not beating people, having the ability and the restraint. The filmmaker nodded. Sounds like more than martial arts. It was. Chuck taught martial arts, but what I learned was bigger. How to carry yourself, how to handle challenges, how to respond to disrespect without becoming disrespectful yourself. The night you challenged him? The night I made a fool of myself, you mean. Did you see it coming, that you'd lose? No, I thought I'd overwhelm him, thought size would matter more than it did. I was completely wrong, completely outclassed, and the worst part? He knew it from the start. He could have ended it in 5 seconds if he wanted, but he gave me chances, let me realize it myself. That's a different level of control. Did it hurt? Your ego, I mean? Absolutely. For about 2 days, I couldn't go back to that gym. I was embarrassed. Everyone saw it. Everyone knew I'd talked big and got handled, but then Chuck showed up at my house. He did? Yeah, knocked on my door, said he heard I hadn't been back to the gym, asked if I was okay, and when I told him I was humiliated, you know what he said? What? Good. Humiliation means you're learning something you didn't know before. Come back to the gym. We'll work together. That's who he was. Is. Not someone who needed to prove anything, just someone who understood that teaching means meeting people where they are.
The final testimony came from someone unexpected, the gym owner who witnessed it all. Sal Rodriguez owned Valley View Athletic Club from 1965 until 2003. When he retired and sold the business, a local newspaper interviewed him about memorable moments from 38 years of running a combat sports facility. The reporter asked, "What's the craziest fight you ever saw?" Sal laughed. It wasn't a fight, it was a lesson. March 1974. This bodybuilder, Derek Morrison, huge guy, 280 pounds, attitude to match. He challenged Chuck Norris. But Derek didn't know who Chuck was, thought he was just some actor playing martial artist. What happened? Chuck put him on the ground twice without throwing a real punch, just used Derek's own momentum, his own aggression, turned it all back on him. I've been around fighters my whole life, boxers, wrestlers, martial artists. I've seen knockouts, submissions, brutal exchanges, but that night, that was different. That was pure technical dominance. No anger, no ego, just perfect technique.